I'm going to talk to you about the least glamorous thing in professional filmmaking. It's not your LUTs, it's not your lens choice, it's how you name a folder on your computer. Bear with me, because the people who've ignored this early on, myself included, have had this exact conversation that you never want to have with a client, where you're panicking, you're relentlessly searching through hard drive after hard drive trying to find the specific video file that's named Final V7 Real Final, use this. So here's the system, and here's how I've made sure I'm never there again. When you're starting out with filmmaking, everything kind of just lives on your desktop or in one big folder called videos, and that's fine for a while. But the second that you're working across multiple clients or have multiple shoot dates or multiple different projects that all blur into each other, it becomes a problem. The system that I use is actually embarrassingly simple, which is exactly why it works. Every project that I work on, I create a folder that starts with 6 numbers. It's year, month, day. So today would be 260730. Then a dash, then the project name. So it'd be 260730 client name or 260730 personal project. Why backwards? Because your computer sorts things alphabetically, which also means it sorts them chronologically. And it does this automatically. So you never have to manually order anything. January's always going to be at the top and December's always going to be at the bottom. So I've just jumped over onto my computer to give you guys a quick example of how my folder structure actually works here. So as you can see, it's right here, it says YYMMDD. That's year, month, day, project name. So for today, that would be 260730, and we'd say YouTube filming. Pretty simple stuff. So that now acts as our root folder. This is what we do for every project every single time. Once we go in here, you can see there's media, music, sound effects, projects, renders, and notes. So once we go into media, we've got video, audio, and assets. I've already sort of filled these out. I've cheated a wee bit and started to fill these out. So in here, there's ACAM card 1, ACAM card 2, BCAM card 1, BCAM card 2, etc., for however many cameras that you have. Another thing I like to do, just in case I'm either handing this off to someone and they don't know what cameras I've shot on, or I myself am coming back to look at these in several years' time, is after I say ACAM card 1, I will also quickly write in the camera that it was shot on, the format that it was in, and what picture profile it was in. So let's say it was A7S 4K S-Log3, and I'll do this for each of the cameras depending on what it was. Sometimes, I'm handed a C80, sometimes I'm handed a Fuji, whatever, and I put that in, and it's just handy to sort of reference back to, just so that you know for what color space you're working in. Anyway, once we go back into media, then we have our audio. So there's captured audio and cleaned audio. The captured audio is everything in its rawest form. So if you had someone mic'd up and there was some separate audio recorded, that lives in the captured audio folder. If you then, like I do, like to clean that up before then you start to actually work with it, then you fire it into whatever DAW that you're working in, and then you chuck it into the cleaned audio section after the fact. Never ever save over the original audio, because you never know whenever you're going to need that. And then we have our assets folder. This is where you would have any logos or intro or outro titles that your client give you, any additional photos, anything else that you didn't capture on the day lives in the assets folder. You can add more folders in here if you need to, but I sort of generally just have this as a little dump for everything else that a client hands to me. Going back to the root folder, then we have our music and sound effects. We have our temp music. This is for all of the music that you download whilst you're editing and you're not sure what's going to make the final cut. Everything then lives into the temp folder. Once you know what songs you're going to use for an edit, that then goes into the final licensed music folder. Music licenses, pretty self-explanatory. That's where your licenses live once you have them. And sound effects. I used to have my sound effects either on a separate folder in my computer or on a small NAS server that I had. But recently I have changed the way that I do things, and I have a dedicated sound effects folder in projects now. It just means that whenever I'm going back to a project in several years' time, if I ever need to, and open up the project, I'm not suddenly just missing like 50 different sound effects. So I build up whatever sound effect library I need per project, and that lives there. Going back to the folder, we have our project. So if you ever need to have a dedicated project database for Resolve, that lives there. Project timelines and files live there, and XML sync files. Occasionally I need to round trip audio and video out on an XML timeline and use a different piece of software to get everything synced up. Those live in the XML sync files. And then we have our renders. So there's timeline renders. Those are things that you need to render in place in your timeline. Those live in there. Work in project renders is your drafts and things that you're sending to the client, the ones that you're sending out for review. And then your final renders folder should actually be used for your final renders. That's it. You shouldn't be adding in any extra things into the final renders. It's the last one. And then we have our notes. So this includes all of our pre-production. So if you've created a folder just for a mood board, or you use Milanote and you can export it, everything that is pre-production based lives there. So that's call sheets. That's everything that is pre-production. Contracts and docs is, again, self-explanatory. It's just any contracts and documents between you and a client. Review notes, that's where once a client sends me through notes, I just find it easier for me if I take all the review notes and fire it into a different text document or whatever, and those live in the review notes. Production notes, this is where if I have any notes that happened on the shoot, I've chucked them into the production notes just so I can refer back to them. Or if I have started an edit and I need to hand it off to someone else, I will write down any issues that I've had, any sync problems or whatever. I will write those all down. That lives in the production notes, and it just makes it faster for someone else to be able to pick up the ball, or even for you to refer back to later on. And transcriptions, again, pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, that's it. It's just 5 simple subfolders within the main folder. It's the same every project. It's the same every time, because when it's the same every time, you stop having to think about it and you're able to focus on the thing that you actually enjoy doing, which is filmmaking.
Really exciting stuff, right? But here's the thing. Folder structure is one of those things where you either set it up once and never have to think about it again, or you're going to think about it at the worst possible moments. And it's always going to be when a client is on the phone looking for a specific export that they've lost, or one of your drives has failed and you're trying to desperately reconstruct an edit from 5 years ago. And whilst this is incredibly boring stuff, this is the boring stuff that holds up your entire project. It's literally the foundation that you build off of, and it's kind of the entire point of having a folder structure. The naming convention doesn't have to be mine. Some people use underscores between words, some use dashes, some capitalize the project name. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that it's consistent, and that it's consistent enough that you, or anybody else for that matter, can today, tomorrow, or 3 years from now open a project and know exactly what they're going to find in every folder before they click into it. That's the goal. It's not aesthetic, it's not impressive, it's just never lost. If you want my folder structure yourself, but don't want to go through the hassle of creating folders and naming them yourself, I've left a link in the description below for you to download it. That's it. See you in the next one.